This is Truth Be Told. Hey everyone, and welcome to Truth Be Told. We're so happy you guys are joining us. We've been enjoying doing these episodes for you, and we want to know what you guys want to hear us talk about at the table. But today, we are going to talk about fearlessness. We're going to talk about overcoming your fears, and we're going to be super vulnerable, guys. So we really want to encourage you to share some of your stories as well. Just comment below, just telling us a little bit about some moments where you've overcome fears as well. But ladies, I just wanted to chat with you and kind of just hear a little bit your story, your journey about facing your fears. You know, maybe there's difficulties, maybe, you know, you have it down. I don't know. But I just want us to kind of share maybe a moment when we've had difficulty overcoming fear.
Great. Well, I'll go first. Sitting here is kind of scary sometimes.
Well, it was funny because we were talking about this in full transparency. Like, a lot of us at the table were a little nervous even approaching this topic. So just to be real about that. And so I think that's why we kind of had like a little pause for a second, like, okay, who's going to go first?
Who's going to go first?
Yeah, so.
I have something to say on that topic. I have something to say on almost every topic, as you may soon realize. But anyway, my greatest fear ever since I was a little girl has always been that I would be insignificant. And so that actually has been, it can be like a downfall, but I actually view it as a really healthy fear because that fear allows me to push past almost all the other fears that I have. So
wow, that's cool.
I feel like I would just be totally bummed if I died and didn't leave an impact or didn't leave this world better than what I found it. And so when I'm scared to do something, like whether it's public speaking or whether it's like starting a business or whatever it might be, the fear of me not having significance in this life actually pushes me past the fear of failure. And so for me, my greatest fear has gotten me through my other fears. So,
yeah, wow. That's cool. Yeah, I had a situation where honestly, I was like afraid to have children. Like that was like a huge fear of mine. And I didn't realize really where it was stemming from. I just knew like I always wanted to have kids like since I was young. Like I told my mom one day I was sitting in the car, I'll never forget it. I think I was like 16 years old. And I was like crying and I was like, I think I just want to be a mom. Is that weird? And she's like, no, honey, like that's totally normal. Like that's okay. And like she just thought it was so beautiful. And she kind of just looked at me in like awe and wonder, like who is this like young person who's sitting here crying and weeping over wanting to be a mother? And then the strangest thing happened. When I got married, like I froze. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like the perfect opportunity and the perfect formula to have a child. But I was like scared. Yeah. And so I kind of went on a journey of like trying to discover what was the root of that. Mm-hmm. And I realized, you know, my mom, and I love my mom. Mom, I know you're going to watch. I love you so much. But she had said, you know, just throughout us growing up, like, I can't wait till you guys get older and you guys move out of the house because now I can finally do what I want to do. And I didn't realize subconsciously that was making me feel like children would stop me from my purpose. That children would stop me from pursuing my passions. I did not realize like how rooted that was in my core that it shook me. And I was so afraid in a time that I should have felt so free to have children, right? And so I really just had to dive deep and work through that and really kind of go in and uproot that lie that was literally holding me back from, you know, even the next generation.
Oh, totally.
You know?
Like, I was just having this conversation. So I just got back from vacation with my family, and my mom and my sister and I were just talking, and she was like, when are you thinking that you're going to have kids? And my sister and I were both giving, you know, the whole like, well, I don't know if this is the right time, and maybe when this happens, maybe when that, you know, and I've been afraid of this, I've been afraid of that. And it was funny because we had just been talking to my mom, like kind of coaching her through something that she was afraid of, and we were like, you know, you got this, Mom, that kind of deal. And then we're sitting there giving her our excuses, and I sat there and I was like, we are so afraid. Like, and I don't even know that it's worth being fearful because we're kind of, we're a very entrepreneurial family. Like, everyone has their things that they do. And so I was like, I can't believe that this is the thing that it's like your whole life, like your body is like, hey, we can, I mean, like at least half your life. We can do this.
We are ready.
We are ready. I know. And that, but like for part of that, your parents are like, you are not ready.
Yeah, right.
Probably good. Thank you, Mom and Dad. But that's really real.
Yeah.
I can absolutely identify with that.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Anyone else like have a experience where they're like afraid of something that kind of literally just triggered like, ah?
For sure. Like for me, I just had my birthday yesterday, but but I think this past year for me has been like the biggest year for me in terms of like overcoming being fearful and letting fear stop me from pursuing things that are in my heart and dreams. And like Renee, like I have this huge drive in me where I'm like, I want to leave an impact. I don't want to be average. And like, that's my biggest fear is honestly being average. And like, I'm like, part of me is like, I want to stand out. But then the other part of me was like so afraid of rejection and failure that like I was in this place of mediocrity that I chose. No one else put me there. And I think it was recognizing that being fearless is just choosing to do something regardless of like what the outcome could be, and like being okay with failure. And because I am not defined by my failures and none of us are, they're just stepping stones to like understanding like who we are and like what we can improve on and how we can be better. And it's never like gonna be this voice of, oh, well, you're a failure because this didn't succeed or this is taking more time than you thought. And it's being like okay with the process, being okay with potentially failing, but like overcoming that. Like that's what I believe fearlessness is taking the mistakes, the failures, the disappointments, and like pushing past that.
That's so good.
So that's been a year for me of like just recognizing that I have been fearless, and it is the best and most scary thing ever. And just because I'm scared doesn't mean we stop or we hold back. I don't know. For me, I'm like, okay, no more holding back.
So
So
good.
That's awesome.
So good.
Yeah, wow, this topic, I feel like I could cry already. I feel like my biggest fear for so long was being afraid that I was never going to find where I belonged. I remember I had quit graduated from college, got a job downtown Chicago, quit my job, and went on like a volunteer, just kind of like a soul searching journey. And then came back to Chicago, got another job, and I still just like something felt off. I didn't feel home, even though it was home. And I was like, I think I just need to move again. And I remember driving in the car with my dad, and he's just giving me fatherly advice, and he was just like, I feel like you're never, I don't know exactly what he said, but I think he, like something along the lines of like, are you just gonna keep doing this every couple years? And I was like, I just know that I'm never gonna stop until I like find what my heart is searching for, until I find like that piece of belonging. And so it took a lot of trial and error. I ended up moving to Austin, not knowing anybody. Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, and a lot of people called it bravery, and I called it like almost desperation. It was like, so just even overcoming the fear of like, what if this isn't, like the what ifs of life, like what if this isn't where I'm gonna like figure out where I belong, or what if I don't find what I'm looking for here? But I think that like overcoming that and just like following like peace and like where like your heart is leading you is what's helped me all along, where it's like I know that like maybe this has what I'm looking for and I'm willing to go after it. So yeah, I don't know. And then just I was talking to a couple people yesterday, and they were like, how do you feel like you've grown the last year? And I was like, I just feel confident for the first time in probably ever. And I was talking to my dad again, and he was just like, I'm just so glad that you've like gotten to this place. And it takes like, it's scary because I feel like now would be the time where I would up and leave, and start over again somewhere. But it's scarier, I think, to stay and like plant yourself somewhere and like be really seen and be vulnerable with people. Yeah. So for me, overcoming fearless is finding a place to like be rooted and people to be rooted with.
Yeah. Well, you also talked about like it's being driven by desperation.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, it's interesting with being fearful, like what actually brings us out of it. You know, like you talked about a motivation of, okay, well, I don't want to be insignificant. And so, and you talked about that as well. And I feel like, you know, with fear, it's like, it's managing it, right? Like, it's like, okay, is being uncomfortable right now worth that feeling to get to the next level?
Yeah.
And I think right now, like especially the last year, or really the last 6 months, I feel that my capacity as a person is increasing, but that also means sitting in discomfort a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's that I know Jessica Honegger talks about going scared. That's like the name of her podcast.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
It's
really
like,
cool.
okay, we're going to do this even though we're afraid,
Yes.
you know? And
Yes.
that is actually, I found that a lot of my fears actually have to do with being afraid of being insignificant, but that I actually won't rise to the occasion of that. Because I've always believed, like, there's something in me that is great. You know, for some reason, like, my parents are amazing, and I was always affirmed of that. But I think that what it's going to actually take for me to be disciplined and to live to the level of what I believe is inside of me takes a lot of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so that's been like
Absolutely.
the fear of the last 6 months of my life is like, am I going to settle? And if I do, it's kind of my fault, or am I going to have that gut wrenching, like, okay, like I want more, you know?
Yeah. It's like the even if, you know, and it's crazy because I went through such interesting switch in a season where I felt like fear was ruling me. And then I was on this warpath of like, I'm going to conquer fear. Like, you ever have those moments when you're like, I'm going to go after that thing no matter what it takes, and like you're relentless with it? I was like, no, like fear cannot control me. Like I just literally was like, it almost makes me think about that bully in school, you know, that like is just like always taunting you, and you're like, today is not going to be like, today is going to be the day that you stop bullying me. And that's what I think fear is. Fear is a bully that just kind of just every single day you're going to school, you're living your life, just comes around and tries to tell you how to live your life, and tries to rule you in a direction that keeps you from your purpose and from your destiny and from who you really are supposed to be. And so I went through the season where I'm like, you know what? If I'm afraid of it, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And so everything that I was afraid of, I was like, that's the thing I'm going to do. Like, I'm afraid to work out at the gym and lift like crazy amounts of weights. I'm going to do it. Like I'm afraid to go here. I'm going to do it. And I just started
afraid to have babies.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to do it this week. So, true story. Anyway, so I was like, I'm going to get radical with going after this thing of fear. And I think that jumped this thing out of me where I was like, I wasn't afraid anymore to do the things because I was like, okay, like as long as I do it, that's how you overcome it. It's like facing your fears is how you become fearless. Yeah. And if you don't face them, like they paralyze you. That's exactly what it does. You ever feel that feeling when fear is in your room? It literally sometimes can physically paralyze you.
Yeah. I think it's like even like we have all these dreams that we want to go after, and like I remember at literally the beginning of this year, I feel like January 1st, I became so afraid of time. I was just looking at my like work calendar and like the holidays we had off, and I remember looking at Christmas and I was like, the year is over. Like the year is already over, and I became such a victim to time, and I was like, I can't fit all the things I want into, and I got so afraid where it felt paralyzing, and then I did nothing. I mean, I didn't, and then I faced my fears, started doing things, and realized like, wow, I have the same amount of time in a day as everybody else. Everybody's just as busy as me. So I think fear sometimes too is just like a really easy perspective shift to be like, oh, okay, like this is actually like not as big of a deal like that I'm making it out to be. Like it's not December 25th when it's January 1st.
I have a mentor in my life, and he uses the statement that the dogs of doom lay at the gate of your destiny. And so the whole preface is the dogs of doom, they're going to bark the loudest when you're stepping into what you're called to do and you're stepping into your destiny. So I often find like as motivation for me when I'm like really fearful about something, like you said, like just tackling it head on, knowing that actually is probably a key to my destiny.
Yep.
Then it gives me the courage and the boldness to step through and to kind of ignore, because it's like their bark is worse than their bite. And it's the same with
so
fear.
true.
I mean, fear is like a liar, and it's going to scream at you, but the moment you conquer it, you're kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
was that all? Like,
Yeah, I got that.
oh, did I really care what people thought of me all that time?
Yeah.
Like,
I think about my little chihuahua when you talk about that. Or she's a chihuahua,
so
Mary,
true. Oh my
and
God,
she's always like barking. Like it'll be the biggest dog on our property, because we live in a complex, and she will choose to lunge at that dog, and I'm always like, who do you think you are? You are so small.
That is so funny.
I love that. We could learn
so
lessons
inspired.
from your dog.
Yeah, that's such a great descriptor of like how small it is. Like even like what you're saying in the scheme of what really is. It's like it's like that little midget, and you're like, or that little ant. Like fear is like so small, you know, and our destiny
Yeah.
is so ginormous.
And perspective and hindsight is such a blessing. I mean, you just have to take a look at high school. I mean, I'm in my 30s now, and so I look back on the things that I was scared of in high school, or the people that I cared, like what they thought. Because fear of man, I mean, it's a big deal.
That's true.
We have a lot of fears,
Yes,
but I would
yes.
say something that almost every single person struggles with is the fear of man. What are other people going to think of me?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, are people looking at me? Firstly, people don't think about us as much as we think they think about us. So that should be reassuring. But I mean, you think back to things that like destroyed you in high school and paralyzed you with fear, and the gift of hindsight tells us, oh, I don't even talk to anyone that I go to high school with,
That's
that I
true.
went to high school with anymore. So like, it just really minimizes the effect that fear can have on us when we have some of this hindsight and perspective. And I just am way more interested in getting on with what I'm called to do than caring what people think. I mean, I still want to look cute, and I still don't want to offend people. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not accountable to them. I'm going to do my best to love people, but if they want to judge me, like, I'm not fearful of people's judgments anymore. And I was saying to the girls, like, I feel like coming into my 30s was such a gift for me in that area. Like, my 20s, I was just like, what do people think of me? How do I look? Like, what am I doing? Like, why do I care? And, like, when I'm in my 30s and 3 kids down, I'm just like, oh, I actually don't care. Like, I care about a person, I care about their heart, but I don't care about the judgments that they make on my life. And
That's so
Yeah,
good.
well, there's that quote out there, and I remember hearing it and just feeling like, oh, okay, this is something I got to deal with. And it was, if you live by the praises of man, you will die by them. And it's like who you are, like who I believed I was so dependent on like the compliments I got and what people thought or said to me and about me, and what like the affirmations that they were giving me, that I would become so caught up and paralyzed by that. And then it was like, oh, well, like I'm so scared to kind of say anything that will rock the boat, or I'm gonna like stay near the wall and become this wallflower that I was never intended to be. And so it was like, I don't want to die by their praises, so why would I navigate my life for their praises? Like, I don't want to live that way. And I don't think anyone truly wants to live their life for anyone else. Like, depending on their affirmations and exactly what people say about you. And, like, granted, there are people where I'm like, okay, like, you're someone I care about and you're allowed to speak into my life. But then it's, like, realizing that not everyone's going to want to be your friend and being okay with that. Not everyone's going to think you're doing the right thing, and that's okay. It's making sure you care about those voices that truly do care about you.
Yeah. And know you.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's amazing how many people will like throw their judgment on you who don't even know you.
Well,
so
there's
true.
There's that. Well,
Who are you? I mean, I don't.
I'm sorry, you don't pay my bills.
Right.
You don't take care of my children. I don't have children, but I'm saying that for people who have children.
Yeah,
It's like, you don't take care of their children. You don't pay their bills. It's like, it's not even a factor. Like, you can't even counter that into the sum total of the value of your life and what it is that you bring and how you show up and what you're supposed to be doing.
I feel like the beauty of it, though, as well, is like when you begin to not care about the judgments of others, you actually get better at not judging others yourself.
That's so true.
Like, which is so much more freedom.
Mic drop.
You know, and I am, I think that's why, because like I've stepped into a new level of freedom in this part of my life. It's because I've realized that, I don't actually care like what some people think of me. And then I'm like, oh, so they probably don't care what I think of them, so I'm just not going to think about them in that way, you know? And it's like, I've got a lot of time then, like when in my head, you know, when I'm not consumed with other people.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, there was a time in my life, like not too long ago, especially with everything that went on in our country politically, like in this past election, it felt very volatile, especially online, and a lot of my life is lived online, like I work online. So I feel like I was afraid to even have an opinion about a lot of things or even to know, like, what do I feel anymore? Because I feel like I can't even have an opinion, or even have, I didn't feel that I had the freedom to even voice something if I felt a certain way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you
And
mean, yeah.
that fear of man actually held me back in, what do I even believe about myself? Am I a good person? Like all these things, you know? And so it's really, the last couple of years have been a journey for me of saying, okay, what do I stand for? Who am I really, without the voices of everything else around me, without all of the noise? And that has been a really interesting journey. And I think ultimately it's come down to, okay, do I love well? And if I love well, and then I believe that my heart will be known, even if, you know, something stupid accidentally flies out of my mouth. Like, to be honest, you know?
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because when I think about fear and I think about facing fears and overcoming, I realize when I look at my life, it was almost like leveling up. So it was almost like, okay, there's this little fear monster, right? And it was like, okay, I faced that. Then all of a sudden it was like I leveled up. It's empowering when you face those fears and you walk through that. It's like what you were saying. It's like it no longer becomes a thing that you're really thinking of. It's almost like those fears, you turn it around and it empowers you and levels you up to be able to walk in another place of freedom, right? And I think it ranges from everything, whether that's confidence to ask for a raise, whether that's confidence to, you know, talk to a friend about something that's been bothering you, whether it's facing a fear of like jumping out of a plane. Like it can be any level, but I don't know. I just find it really important to remember that every single time you have a fear, it's an opportunity to level up.
Yeah, come on. Put your big girl panties
Come on. That's exactly what I'm
Do you
saying.
say that in America?
Yeah,
That's the title of this episode. Big girl panties.
Oh, that actually would be that's great. That's going to be what it is.
I just took this message. Sorry.
So what advice would you guys have for someone right now who's like, look, I'm really struggling with fear. Like I'm literally feeling, like you were saying, paralyzed in fear. Like how can we like encourage people who are watching today to just face that?
I think some of our fears, like when we have like more surface level, like they seem surface level, like I'm afraid of, I don't know, like time, you know, but like, and then it's like to like take some time and really like dig deep and find the root of what that fear actually is, you know, like process it out. And I think get with people that you trust and say like, hey, like this is what I'm afraid of, so they can like stand with you and be like, okay, no, like this is like remind you who you are and like how powerful you are, and like ask them for feedback, like ways they've seen you grow over the last year or so they can like affirm you that you're more powerful than like this like in like this fear or this moment of fear that you're like facing right then. And I think that like being in a community where a lot of people are like facing their fears is really powerful too. So to like get around people, you know, that are also like going after that. So you can be like, oh wow, like if she can do it, and it just kind of like rubs off on you too.
That's so
you
true.
know?
That is so true.
I feel like we touched it in another episode. I wasn't sure which one, but like the power of your words and the power of declaration and positive declaration. And I think like reminding yourself, and not even reminding because maybe you've actually never known, but telling yourself who you are and your significance and your calling that's on your life, and telling yourself until you believe it, and letting that voice in your life be more powerful than the voice of fear. Because I mean, fear is just a voice, right? It's just this little voice telling us we can't do it, we're not enough, we're too much. I mean, it's like hot air, you know? And so I think when we can just really begin to believe who we are and our identities, then I think that that is like a huge deal in facing fear.
Absolutely. I agree.
Like, I think the easiest way you can achieve any goal or any dream is putting something that you know you can attain right in front of you and and deciding to do it. So like I'm seriously, every episode I swear I'm talking to myself because I'm like, okay, so put something in front of you for your day where you're like, there's no reason for me not to do this. Like if it's sketching something or like reaching out to someone, like I started a business and it's been a learning process, and the one thing that stopped me so much is looking at the big picture and like looking where it's not, looking where I want it to be, but it's taking so much time. And instead of doing that, looking at what's like one thing I can do today to like make it grow, or how can I grow as an individual. And I think that if you just have some grace for yourself and for your process to take time. And so like if it's going to the gym, like you're not going to go to the gym suddenly and like love every bit of it or know exactly what to do. But the only way you're really going to know how to do anything at the gym is to go. And you can watch people, just don't be creepy about it. But like just observe. And it's like making a simple choice to change your life instead of looking at where you're not or being frustrated with your process. Like have grace for your process, write out a plan, and get going.
I agree. I agree. I think it's writing. Like writing for me is huge. Journaling is really huge. I feel like it really dives deep into the monologue of your mind. Whoa, that's a monologue of your mind. That's cool. That's a book. Anyway, sorry. But like, I was just like, you can take it. 10%. No. But like the monologue of your mind, and it really just kind of can identify those things. So for me, a really huge practical tool is like journal, write down, like make a list of things that are patterns that are coming up your mind that you really feel like, man, I'm hitting a wall in this, and really jot that down and then go after those things like they were saying, like go after the root. Where is that coming from? Where is that stemming from? Then add those declarations, those affirmations over your life, and speak those things over your life, and then come up with a plan, a practical thing to say, okay, this one thing I'm going to tackle. Don't try to do them all at once because it's like it, but start at the top. Maybe it's the lowest hanging fruit one, right? Go after that one and literally make a plan and just do it. You'll never know until you try.
And if you're motivated by gifts and rewards like I am. Okay, so I have part of like what I do for a living is speak in front of people, but it is like I get nervous to do it every single time I do it. And so part of my reward is I buy myself something.
That is so fun.
So I just had to speak last night, and I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to get up and speak, I'm going to buy myself a new pair of shoes to do it in.
Ooh,
so I like reward myself when I overcome fears. I'm like a 6-year-old child, really.
It's my new thing.
So funny that you did that. Like last night, I was like, honey, I think I'm going to have like some of my vegan ice cream and treat myself because I'm really like, no, I'm not kidding.
I'm very food motivated.
No, I am, and I'm really like restricting like sugar and things like that. And so I was like, babe, I think I did really well last night. Like I was like, okay, like I'm gonna treat myself and
giving myself a reward.
And I did, and I had ice cream last night.
Good. That's awesome.
So I love that.
I know. I love that too. Very much so. And honestly, I have to get off the food motivation train, but
just get on the shoe train. And
I will get on the I'm about the
Are you
shoe
guys the
train.
same size shoe?
I don't know what size are
7.5?
you? Oh, well, I'm a 9. I have big feet.
I'm surprised by this.
Oh my God.
Well, I have small face. So it kind of piggybacking off of what you guys are saying about, our internal dialogue, something that has helped me a lot, even in identifying like, oh, this is complete like crap. Like this thought that I'm having, this is totally a fear, not real. Has actually been, I think it's a Brene Brown, like in one of her books, saying, oh, the story that I'm telling myself is blank. Because for me to be like, what am I afraid of? It's like everything, but really, just to actually write out like the story I'm telling myself is, if I do this, then blank. And that has been enormously helpful.
Awesome.
And then something, I think I talked about this in our episode about, self-talk in general, but something that's been helping me in this season is imagining myself as like elevated Kristen. So like what is, you know, the most pumped up, motivated version of me, and like what is it gonna take for me, like what would she actually tell me? Like I actually
good.
imagine myself, she is wearing like her trainer outfit, she's got her like Fabletics on, she's like, get with that program. Well, thank you so much for joining our chat on Becoming Fearless. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Truth Be Told Show and hit that subscribe button so that you find out when we have new episodes live. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and you still have time to enter our giveaway. So if you want some amazing serum from Second Kind Beauty at Second Kind Beauty on Instagram, if you want to check it out, please check out our video on self-care and learn about all the rules so you can enter that. We'll see you next time.